Anselmus Cur Deus Homo. Book First, Chapter 21. How great a burden sin is. Anselm, suppose that you did owe any of those things which you have brought up as possible payment for your sin. Let us inquire whether they can satisfy for a sin so small as one look contrary to the will of God. Boso, did I not hear you question the thing? I should suppose that a single repentant feeling on my part would blot out this sin. Answer: you have not as yet estimated the great burden of sin. Boso: show it me then. Answer: if you should find yourself in the sight of God, and one said to you, look thither, and God, on the other hand, should say, it is not my will that you should look. Ask your own heart what there is in all existing things which would make it right for you to give that look contrary to the will of God. Boso: I can find no motive which would make it right, unless indeed I am so situated as to make it necessary for me either to do this or some greater sin. Answer: put away such necessity, and ask with regard to this sin only whether you can do it even for your own salvation. Boso: I see plainly that I cannot. Answer: not to detain you too long. What if what if it were necessary either that the whole universe, except God himself, should perish and fall back into nothing, or else that you should do so small a thing against the will of God? Boso: when I consider the action itself, it appears very slight, but when I view it as contrary to the will of God, I know of nothing so grievous, and of no loss that will compare with it. But sometimes we oppose another's will without blame in order to preserve his property, so that afterwards he is glad that we oppose him. Answer: this is in the case of man, who often does not know what is useful for him, or cannot make up his loss. But God is in want of nothing, and should all these things perish, can restore them as as, as easily as he created them. Boso: I must confess that I ought not to oppose the will of God even to preserve the whole creation. Answer: what if there were more worlds as full of beings as things? Boso: were they increased to an infinite extent, and had before me in like manner, my reply would be the same. Answer: you can answer more correctly, but consider also, should it happen that you gave that look contrary to God's will, what payment you can make for this sin? Boso: I can only repeat what I said before. Answer: so heinous is our sin, whenever we knowingly oppose the will of God, even in the slightest thing, since we are always in his sight, and he always enjoins it upon us not to sin. Boso: I cannot deny it. Therefore, therefore you make no satisfaction unless you restore something greater than the amount of that obligation, which should restrain you for committing the sin. Boso: reason seems to demand this, and to make the contrary wholly impossible. Answer: even God cannot rise to happiness any being bound at all by the debt of sin, because he ought not to. Boso: this decision is most weighty. Answer: listen to an additional reason which makes it no less difficult for men to be reconciled to God. Boso: this alone would drive me to despair were it not for the consolation of faith. Answer: but listen. Boso: say on.